Sairam students, let's begin with the Class 8 Political Science, Chapter number 3, Why Do We Need a Parliament? The fourth part of this chapter today. Let's go through the content. We have already completed with the introduction. Why should people decide? We have learnt in our first session. Then the second we have learnt about the people and their representatives. Then in the last session we learnt about the role of the parliament. In that role of the parliament we learnt important, that is the functions of the parliament, right? Just have a quick summary of what we learned, what we have done in our third session. In that we learnt about the functions of the parliament, that is to select the national government. In that we saw after the election party wise list of elected representatives is made. Then we have seen that to make the national government, it is essential to get the majority in Lok Sabha. The total number of seats available in Lok Sabha is 545. Out of that, 272 seats should be there with the to make the government. So if the party is in majority, only then that party can be the ruling party. Correct. The leader of the majority party is invited by the president to form the government or the ruling party, and then he or she becomes the prime minister. This is what we have seen. Then we learnt about the coalition government also. Correct. What was that? When it is difficult for a single party to have the majority, to show the majority, then that party can join with another any other different political parties, and they can come together and form coalition, and that government will be called as a coalition government. Then we saw about the second important function of the parliament was to control, guide and inform the government, right? In that we learned that about the question hour. The parliament begins with a question hour, and we learned what is that question hour. We saw that it's an important mechanism through which MPs elicit information about the working of the government, and it is also a very important way through which the parliament can control the executive. Correct. Then we saw the third important function was the lawmaking. Then lawmaking is also one of the significant function of parliament. Correct. This is what we have done in the third session. Now the last topic, who are the people in parliament? Now, who are the people in parliament? Parliament has more and more people from different backgrounds. For example, there are more rural members as also members from many regional parties. So groups and peoples that were till now unrepresented are beginning to get elected to parliament. There has also been an increase in political participation from the Dalits and the backward classes. Let us look here. Here one table has been shown to you here. The percentage of the population who voted in Lok Sabha elections in different years. See, looking at the percentages and year after year, you can judge here what is there. Look at this and try to understand the people's participation during the last 65 years has been shown to you here, whether it has decreased, increased or it's stable. Just have a look and go through it. See, if you'll compare in 1951-52, it was only the voters turnouts was only 61.16%, whereas if you will see in the year 2019, it has increased to 67.11%. So definitely looking at this data, you can say there is an increase in the voter turnouts. It has been observed that representative democracy cannot produce a perfect reflection of society. So there is a realization then that when interest and experiences separate us, it is important to ensure that the communities that have been historically marginalized are given adequate representation. This is what, see, actually why SCs and STs, they should be included there, because the increased participation from Dalits and backward classes, marginalized societies like SCs and STs, they will have reservation in parliament as they are more familiar with the interest of their society also. So some seats are reserved. With this in mind, some seats are reserved in parliament for SCs and STs. This has been done so that the MPs elected from these constituencies, they will be familiar with and can represent Dalit and Adivasis interest in parliament. See, they can understand the people from that particular area only can understand very well about the problems faced by the Dalits and the Adivasis people, correct? So if they have been included in that parliament, they get the seats in the parliament, they are the right person to take some good steps for them, for the benefit of that particular society, of that particular region, or that particular community. So that is the reason there was a need to have the reservations in parliament for SCs and STs also. So that is the reason that Parliament decided to have some reservations for SCs. SCs means scheduled caste and ST means scheduled tribes. See, as per the order issued by the Delimitation Commission in 2008, 412 were the general categories reservation. Among that, 84 seats are reserved for scheduled caste and 47 seats for the scheduled tribes. Actually, whereas earlier it was 79 and 41 for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes respectively. So we can say in that way, looking at that number, like the number of seats in parliament were increased for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Why? Because they are the right people. They can tell about the community, the problems faced by their community, and then the government can take the decisions according to that, right? Now, similarly, it has more recently been suggested that there should be reservation of seats for women also. This issue is still being debated. 60 years ago, if you will talk, only 4% of MPs were women, and today it is just about 12%. Whereas, actually, as per the Women Reservation Bill, it is like 33% that passed in the Parliament of India, which proposed to amend the Constitution of India to reserve 33% of all seats in the lower house of Parliament of India, that is in the Lok Sabha. But whereas it is still like it is not yet confirmed, it is still in debate, because Rajya Sabha has passed a bill, but still Lok Sabha has not passed a law for that. So still that particular reservation bill, the women's reservation bill, is in debate. This is a small share when you consider the fact that half of the population are women, but still that 33% reservations have not been allotted to the women, because Rajya Sabha has passed a bill on March 9th of March 2010, wherever the Lok Sabha never voted on that bill. The bill is still pending as it never went to the Lok Sabha. So it is issues of this kind that force the country to ask certain difficult and often unresolved questions about whether our democratic system is representative enough, whether the allotment that has been done, with the fair representation has been done. The fact that we can say these questions are and are working towards answers is a reflection of. Now let's understand the meaning of the term unresolved first. Unresolved means the situations in which there are no easy solutions to problem. See, resolved means when it is settled down, when the problems have been solved out. Whereas unresolved means the opposite of that, where the solutions of the problems are not easy. So it is like the fact that we can ask these questions and are working towards answers is a reflection of the strength and the faith that people in India have in a democratic form of government. So this kind of discussions about reservations and questions restores our faith in the democratic form of government, right? Now let's have the quick recap of what did we learn in the today's topic, that is, who are the people in parliament. The parliament has more and more people from different backgrounds. There are more members from rural areas as well as from the regional parties. Like many groups which had no representation earlier are also there now, such as from the backward classes. So increased participation is there from the Dalit and backward classes. Marginalized societies like SCs, that is a scheduled caste, ST, that is the scheduled tribes, have reservations in parliament as they are more familiar with the interest of their society. Correct. So recently the idea of women reservation have also been suggested, but that issue is still being debated. So along with the members from national or regional political parties, there are independent members also. But representative democracy sometimes is not a true reflection of society. Actually, historically, if we'll say marginalized communities like the SCs and the STs have been given adequate representation in the parliament. The issue of reserved seats for women is still being debated. So, if we'll talk about the reservation of women, half of the population is of women, but only about 9% of our MPs. I told you recently it is 12% of MPs are women. So this kind of discussions about reservations and questions that restores our faith in the democratic form of government. If we'll talk, all people do not cast their vote, right? See, if you have remembered, we have gone through the table there. We saw the percentage was 67 in the year 2019. It means out of 100%, only 67% are going for, they cast their vote. They use their right to vote. So, representing democracy cannot produce a perfect reflection of society. It is important that communities that have been historically marginalized are given adequate representation. So, their interests and requirements may be separate. And I told you about that reservation, women's reservation bill also in 1951-52, only 4% of MPs are women, but today it is just around 12%, whereas still half of the population is of women. So that the bill of the 33% need to be considered in that way. So this is what today we have learnt in the topic, who are the people in parliament. So I hope you all understood the today's topic, that is who are the people in parliament, very well. Now here we have completed with our chapter today. The main topics that we have learned here is given here. We will just summarize the topics, like the main important points that we have touched in this chapter throughout this 4 parts. We have learnt about that after a long struggle we got independence in 1947, right? Then during national struggle, policies of the British were openly criticized. Correct. Then the demands like the elected representatives to legislature, discuss budget, etc. These were made. Then we learnt about the Government of India Act 1909. Then after that you also learnt about the universal adult franchise, that is the all citizens of India has the right to vote, above 18 years has the right to vote irrespective of caste, color, religion, right? Then you learnt about the parliament is the supreme representative authority. Constitution gave the right to Indian citizens to elect our parliament. And we learnt about the two houses in parliament, that is the Lok Sabha, elected for 5 years, and then the Rajya Sabha also. The candidates belonging to different political parties contest from different constituencies. Then elected members are called as the MPs, that is the members of the parliament. Then we learnt about the coalition government. The majority party forms the government and elects the leader or prime minister of the nation. In case if the party doesn't have majority, then the coalition is formed. Then that government formed through coalition is called as the coalition government. Then the main function of parliament is to legislate, that is to elect the national government, to control and guide the national government, and also to have the law making policies, that is to control the executives also. Then we saw the representative democracy should have the representation of reservations for the SC, that is scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, as well as for the women also. Then the important terms that we have learned in our chapter is the democratic form of government, that is government of the people, for the people and by the people. Then we learned about the universal adult franchise. You saw about the EVMs also, that is electronic voting machines. Then you are learnt about the coalition in Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha. Even we learnt about the ruling party, the political party, or the combination of the political parties with more than 50% members is termed as a ruling party, whereas the opposition was the combined strength of all the political parties in the parliament with less than 50% of the representative, that is called as opposition party. Then we saw the leader of the ruling party in Lok Sabha is the prime minister, right? So this is what we have completed with our chapter. Now here A quiz time. Let's begin with the quiz here now. Who elects the members of the Rajya Sabha? That is the citizens of the country by secret ballot, or elected members of the state legislative assemblies, or elected members of the Lok Sabha. Yes, the correct answer is the elected members of the state legislative assemblies. Representatives to the parliament are chosen by the dash. Is it the government, rulers, or people? Yes, it is people. Then the group of people who work together to implement the laws made by the parliament are named as, is it executive, is it member, or is it prime minister? Yes, it's executive. Then in our country, what is the term of the Lok Sabha election? Is it the 4 years, is it 3 years, or is it 5 years? Yes, this is 5 years. Which is an important way to control an executive in the parliament? I hope you all remembered it very well. Is it through the question hour, or is it through assembly, or is it 0 hour? Yes, it's question hour. So here we have completed with our chapter. I hope you all have understood the chapter very well. Go through all the presentations. See you in the next session with a new chapter. Till then, take care.